Today, I'm excited to welcome Terence Michael to the podcast. Terence is an Emmy-nominated TV and film producer and is the author of Proof of Money. He's also an entrepreneur, investor, and consultant at the Bitcoin Advisor. Welcome to the Bitcoin Age, Terence.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Great to see you. Before we get to Bitcoin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. So my general story is that I've been in Hollywood most of my life, producing movies and TV shows. I'm an LA native, so it's kind of what I've grown up in, went to school out here, all of that. I was always a business person. I studied business. I went to business school. And so I was in the business side of Hollywood at first. I just got burnt out of being the businessman and I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to really tell story. And so once I started to learn how to tell story and the hero's journey and connect with audiences, it helped me realize that what a lot of us, this game that we are playing in life is mostly because of broken money. And I didn't know it at the time. And here's what I mean. So in Hollywood, we all make really good money. We make phenomenal amounts of money. It's like compared to the rest of the country or the rest of the world, it's like, wow, this is so much money. But we have these long hiatuses and, we really are blue collar workers in a way. We're like these traveling circus, productions come and go, mandates change from mainstream media and what the studios and what the networks want. I mean, we literally get emails from them saying, these are the types of stories we want to tell. This is what we want to do. And because of that, I myself at a certain point wanted to have a house and I couldn't qualify for a mortgage. And a lot of my friends couldn't qualify for mortgages. And so here we are in Hollywood in this industry and we're making a lot of money, yet we couldn't store it. We couldn't secure it. We couldn't even get a house because, they want you to have a regular W-2 and work for some corporation for 10, 20 years. So I started to know, in hindsight, I now see it now that I'm a Bitcoiner, but I didn't at the time realize that this was all due to broken money. And so I was looking for a better store of value. Again, without knowing at the time, I was looking for a better store of value, which for me was real estate. Because what happens is the majority of Hollywood are making movies and TV shows that they do not want to make. That's the honest truth. They convince themselves they want to do it because it helps them cope. It helps them, get through life. But, and then you go through the publicity machine and all of that. But it's just, they're not making things that they want to. And it's because they need the money. So real estate ended up for me being a way to store that in a better finite way for all of the reasons that we know real estate and land and whatnot to be good. And at the time, I thought that was the best possible. I'm not a gold person. I've never been into gold. Honestly, I don't know anybody into gold. None of my friends are into gold. None of my family's into gold. I've read that less than 1% of Gen Z owns gold. Less than 5% of millennials own gold. Later as I've learned about Bitcoin, I've learned about gold, but still gold is just not interesting to me. So real estate was interesting to me. But again, I couldn't afford a mortgage. So I formed a mortgage company. I got 3 licenses in real estate, not to sell real estate, but to be a broker and to broker mortgages and liens and whatnot. And once I learned about the inner workings and how it all worked, I set up shop so that everyone in Hollywood who wanted to and really did have enough money could get a home. So I became that guy. I still have that company. It operates on its own, very passively. Do I love it? No, I do not love it, especially since I found Bitcoin, but it's sort of a tool to help people. Then, comes along Bitcoin and I realize real estate is the friction, where I thought Hollywood was the friction and the problem. And I used real estate to help contain that so I could choose to make TV shows and movies that I wanted to. I could say no to things. I then chose real estate and, I convinced myself and told myself that I was doing real estate because I was the hero of my own life, that I was navigating all of these obstacles and I was overcoming them by flipping and learning how to hack the system and, looking at cycles and almost like a trader, but doing it with real estate. Because I was never really into stocks or a stock trader or anything like that. But then when Bitcoin came along, I realized how much friction and how much interference there was in real estate. And even though I convinced myself I loved it, I even wrote a best-selling book about it and all kinds of real estate tools and strategies, which I now cringe at because, it's like all these, Bitcoin meetups and these conventions and things we go to, like times that by 1,000-fold with size and energy. I've been to all of those on the real estate side. I've spoken at all those. I've promoted all of those. I've been a part of all those. I've been parts of syndicates and sponsorships and partnerships. And most of those people, I'm making this up, but I want to say 98% of those people, they do not want the real estate. They just want the money. They want what real estate can do for them, but they convince themselves that they should be a landlord and have an 8-plex or a 15-plex or whatever. And they really just want the money. They don't want the tenants, the trash, the taxes, the toilets, all the stuff that we have to deal with. They just convince themselves. I've even made TV shows about this. You've seen some of them on HGTV. And it's like, I got into it. I really convinced myself. And part of me does like the actual tangible productivity of real estate, but people shouldn't have to do that, right? They shouldn't have to spend Friday nights at Home Depot and all weekend, under a leaky sink. So this is stuff that a lot of Bitcoiners know, I think, but as a lot of people first come into Bitcoin, they don't realize that in the fiat world, we are just constantly playing a game. It's an external scorecard of where the metric is fiat dollars, because since the prices of everything go up, because the money supply keeps increasing, we just think we need more money, right? That's how we're all raised and programmed. Make more money. How are you going to make your money grow? What are you going to fall back on? And we shouldn't have to do this. Looking back, I should have just been able to say, I love story. I want to just tell story. I should just be able to make movies and TV shows and be able to tell the stories that I want to. But I wasn't able to for all of the reasons I just mentioned. So maybe that's a clunky way of just saying that is, in a sense, my journey is that I'm creative, but I had to use real estate to secure that creativity. That distracted me. And then I got really big into real estate, and that benefited me in fiat dollars. And then so when I found Bitcoin, I said, this is it. And so I've been divesting of as much real estate as possible. I still have quite a bit, but I got rid of a lot of real estate and businesses. I had a whole Airbnb business, which a lot of people did, but with 4 properties, and Bitcoin just took all of that away because really I was looking for a savings technology. I didn't want to be an investor in hindsight, and I don't think anyone really wants to be an investor. I really don't think so, but I think we have to take risk. We have to adopt counterparty risk. We have to accept centralization because we don't have a savings account. So when Bitcoin came along, clearly I learned that this was a superior savings technology and that we've never had savings, because even what we call savings in a bank really is an investment because we're taking risk because it's a loan to the bank. And here's 0.5%. Thanks for that loan.
I can attest to that. I'm a realtor in Miami, and I actually sold my investment property, put into Bitcoin because of exactly all the reasons you said. Even though I went into real estate because I realized I need to secure my future more. I like some parts of it, and there's some wonderful people and clients, but there's another part I really don't enjoy. So you're right. As I get older, I realize, and I found Bitcoin, it's time to do what you love and waste time on doing stuff that you don't love. I definitely agree with you. Tell me a little bit about how that led you to Bitcoin. So you had a mortgage company, you were helping people in Hollywood also afford homes. How did you find Bitcoin?
Okay, I found Bitcoin because, so let me think the best way. There's so many different ways to answer this because, there's the point where we're aware of Bitcoin and we all start buying a little bit and, we dabble and we think of it as a stock or a company. And so, right, we need to diversify as we've been conditioned, and we start buying all of this crypto and all these other things. So, I first heard about it back in 2014 to 2017, there was Bitcoin, but to me, it was just scary. And, I've always been interested in tech. I was around when the internet came about, and I loved all that. And I was building websites before anybody did. So I loved the tech part, but I never saw it as money. It was just, to me, it was a trade. It was just yet another trade. It was a way to potentially learn about a new technology and maybe I'll make some more dollars. But I didn't ever buy anything serious. It was like, oh, here's $100 there, $100 there. And of course, I lost all of that because it's like, why would I stick with Bitcoin? Look at all these other better technologies, right? So that came about just from being in Hollywood. A lot of my crew was talking about it, a lot of the technical people, camera operators, whatnot. And, there was a Wired article in 2014 that I had in a hotel when we were shooting in New York. And I read the whole article and I was like, this is fascinating. But I remember thinking, I'm going to need to get a hard drive. I'm going to need to drive to this weird internet cafe, sit down with a stranger to get some Bitcoin. And so I didn't do anything for the most part. When 2017 came around, and like I think the sort of bull runs of every 4-year cycle, 2017, 2021, like if you ask people when they came in, I think it's usually one of these dates. 2017 is when I really started to dig deeper into it and say, okay, now how can this thing be so worth so much? And I own almost none because it had been gambled away. And so once I started to learn about it, I had that aha moment that we live in a world that is completely dishonest. We live in a world where this is going to sound funny, Paula, but I believe that as humans, we're born bad in that we are born, we're born with self-preservation. We want to protect ourselves. We want to survive. And when I say we, I mean even, animals. We will lie based on the bananas we took. I didn't take those bananas. We will cheat. We will steal. We will be aggressive. Whatever it takes. So we strive to be good people. We try to be good animals. We have to learn, whether it's through, cultural, societal, parental, like we want to teach our kids to be good. We go to school, there's positive Instagram quotes, there's meditation, there's therapists. It's like, we aren't just naturally born, this is what I'm saying, good. And part of it is because the society that we're in is somewhat bad. It is a game. We're chasing titles. We're chasing a scorecard. We're chasing metrics. What can I broadcast to the world about who I am, what I can be? What are you going to be when you grow up? Oh, that sounds impressive. What's your title? Do you have the corner office? Do you have a new parking space with your name on it? And so because of that, it's like I came to the realization that Bitcoin, it's like, why would I be excited about this? All it is a distributed database. This is really boring. It's an accounting ledger. But, like the internet, where it democratized and decentralized information and made it available for everybody, for 8 billion people, here's information. Bitcoin as this neutral public protocol really did that for everybody, just to have truth, to say, here is the world where we are born bad and where certain people can put points on the board, but you can't. The rules keep changing. Here's something that is just a ledger. It's just a database, but it's a database of truth. And everyone has to do the work if they want to participate, including the bad people. So even the bad people are incentivized to, in a sense, be good. I have to exert energy to participate in this game, which will honor my truth. So I can take my choices and my preferences, then I can carry them forward into the future. So that if I want to be telling stories in Hollywood, I can do that without having the friction of real estate or gambling and other things. So for me, I found Bitcoin, and again, having the business school background, where it sounds really nerdy, but I saw it just as an honest accounting ledger. And I just thought, this is just really profound that here's this accounting ledger where you're not waiting for quarterly statements. I'm not waiting for annual reports. I don't have to trust what someone says. In the movie industry, and this is well known, it's not a secret, there's not a single movie or TV show that has ever been honest about the accounting. Not a single one. And it's why no one gets back end. It's why no one gets points, except for a few massive actors who you hear about who are right from $1 gross, so they can just look at what the exhibitors are giving them. There's just no back end. So you take your fees and you move on. So with Bitcoin's ledger of truth, I thought, well, wait a minute. So, similar to a ruler or a scale or a thermometer, it's like there's actually a measurement for money. And it just blew my mind to think that we really haven't had a measurement for money before. we have the nominal numbers of dollars, but those don't mean anything. It's why I like when people say, one Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin. And critics are always like, well, $1 will be always $1. No, but when people say one Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin, what they mean is one Bitcoin will always be one of 21 million Bitcoin. $1 will never be one of 35 trillion, 36 trillion, right? It's going up as we're talking. So that was what my aha moment. And that's when I first came into Bitcoin. So that was 2017, even though back in 2014, I was aware of it. But like all of us, there's that moment about it, but then there's the orange pill, right? Which is when you like walk around in a daze and you go, my goodness, how do I tell the rest of the world? Does anyone realize this? Am I crazy? What is going on? That's probably the unplugging from the matrix.
And is that when you started to think of writing your book?
Yes. 3 years later, I wrote the book when I started to synthesize all of these thoughts. And honestly, I hadn't read a Bitcoin book yet. I probably should have, but I'm more of an article and podcast junkie. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I was grabbing everything I could. And I also was thinking about my circle. I was thinking about all my friends in Hollywood, who they care about the environment. They care about energy, even though they're a little misguided on the fact that energy is abundant and it's good. And I was thinking about all the real estate people that I'd met in all these real estate meetups and people that I was even partnered with in real estate that didn't like the real estate, but they needed the store value. And I thought, I'm going to write something for them. And I also knew, because I've written 2 books that were not Bitcoin, because I am a writer as well. I've already written a self-improvement book and I wrote a real estate book. I thought, I don't know of any Bitcoin books where it's a writer who wrote the Bitcoin book. They're just Bitcoiners who wrote. And I thought maybe this would help, because I could really wordsmith. I could really think about story. I could really think about the approach. I could really break it down the way I would a movie or a TV show to make the book exciting for people that aren't really interested in Bitcoin. So I wanted to speak to real estate people, to stock people, to Hollywood people. I even have a 3-chapter arc in there where I adopt the characters from the TV show Friends. And it's a story. It's a 3-arc story that helps teach people about nodes and mining and energy, because these friends are sitting in a cafe in New York and they don't like their banking system. And some stranger named Satoshi hears them and he's like, let me help you. So I do some cute things like that, and other things I just get right into it. And a lot of it is stuff that we Bitcoiners know or probably have read in other books, gold standard, the petrodollar, BRICS, how money works, bonds, all of that. But I try to do it in a fairly entertaining and allegorical way. And so my thesis, the reason I called it Proof of Money, is because my thesis is that we have never, ever had money before. For the first time in history, we now have money, because we've never made money. We've never engineered money. We've always just had imposters. We've had to take whatever we could find or dig up in the ground. It's always been a substitute. It's always been a coupon. And so, which is funny to think about. And so now for the first time, we said, well, wait a minute. We know what the properties of money are. We know what money should be. And if people are intellectually honest and you sit down with them and say, hey, what should money be? They will come up with all of the properties, right? You stick them in some Turkish prison and you're like, look, you can't get out until you tell me what money should be. They will come up with all of these things, right? Of durable, portability, divisibility, all of this. And it's like, okay, so if you're being honest, then that's Bitcoin. And we can see it because it is transparent and auditable and it's code. And so I just think a lot of people, and I talk about this in the book, just aren't honest about really what they're doing in life, what they want to do in life, and how money is disadvantaging that, how they aren't able to show up and express themselves as they want to, because they are saving and denominating in imperfect money. And so it's just such a big idea that it's hard for people to just be, okay, whoa. Why do I have this second job? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why can't I do this? Because it's a big leap to suddenly jump into Bitcoin, full stop. And it's why sometimes we'll tell people, and the internet is just such a perfect metaphor that If you think about the internet and all the value that we've had and how much it has grown, and that when it started off as this academic and military relay system in the 60s, but now it's a theater or a flea market or a dating app. It's so many things and things we can't even imagine. Imagine if this would be foreign and weird, but imagine if when the internet started, there was an internet token. And all this token did was it captured how valuable this was. And it went up and up and up and up and up. Right? But instead, we had to gamble on various companies that were built on top of the internet. It's like, well, that's all the Bitcoin, the asset is. Bitcoin, the token, that's really what it is. It's capturing all of this value. It has a market value, but it's the network, just like the internet, that is so valuable. And so I think people can understand some of those things. Like people understand the internet, so I think that's a good comparison. They understand property, and a lot of people, especially younger generations, can't afford property, or like we were talking about going to real estate. So I like to say, like, great, Bitcoin is property, and here's how you can get into it. And a lot of the things we know as Bitcoiners, but so the book is a good, I think, beginner to mid-level area to start for people.
Sounds wonderful. Do you think you have orange pilled quite a few of your friends with the book, and what's some of the feedback you've had?
I do think I have. Yeah. I mean, I run a private newsletter. I'm not looking for new subscribers. In fact, no one can subscribe. I literally add people myself, and it's grown to over 1,000 people, just people I've worked with in my life, and, friends and family, coworkers. And yeah, there are several that I know are because I help them get into multi-signature setups. I help them figure out what platforms to use to buy Bitcoin. Many of them now have them in their retirements. I've onboarded many boomers and even older boomers with their entire retirements, like moving all of their bonds. That's been one major area for me that I'm very interested in is going to people's 60-40 portfolios and saying, okay, especially people that are well off, and saying, look, this 40% or 30% you have in bonds, you're probably never going to need it in your lifetime, right? Because some of these people are like in their 80s. And I'm like, let's move this into Bitcoin, because you know what? I bet your heirs, I bet your grandchildren, they're going to want Bitcoin. They're not going to want these government bonds, which won't be worth anything and can't hurdle inflation anyways. So yeah, I believe I've orange pilled quite a few, because I can see who's holding them in multi-signature wallets.
Amazing. Do you think that some of the people who are doing well and a good portfolio have more than enough, have less of a reason to look Bitcoin because doing well?
Yeah, I think whenever you're fiat favored, it's really tough. And going back to the thing I was saying about us, being born bad, like we are born to survive. We have this anchoring, heuristic where this is what has worked for us. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And so we sit there with it. So, the conversation I like to have with them is, what percentage of what you have do you know is going to be passed on through inheritance or go through your estate? Let's have that difficult conversation, and let's sit down with your children or your grandchildren and see what they would want. And what do you think that'll be worth to them? Maybe in nominal terms, it's going to be worth all this, but what will the price of a house be by the time they get it? And so that sometimes makes them think, well, it's like, if the price of the house is going to be here and your bonds are going here, like, are you really doing anything for them? Either give that money to them now, or let's put it in Bitcoin so that it really does give them more of what they want. I think showing people that Bitcoin can create your own economy, regardless of what the actual economy is doing, is helpful. And that's also hard for people to understand. But you can also just tell them, hey, look, why don't you just today start pricing everything in chickens? Oh, you need to buy that lumber? Okay, great. That's 27 chickens. Like, well, how many chickens will that be tomorrow? And it's like, it's foreign and odd to think like that, but that's what we get to do with Bitcoin. And since you can't make more chickens and chickens can't die, everything in Bitcoin terms will just continue to go down. I had posted the other day that, this house right here that I live in, when I purchased it in 2014, so just a decade ago, it was equivalent of 1,818 Bitcoin. Okay, 1,818 Bitcoin. I could sell it today very easily for 21 Bitcoin. Now, the price of my house has doubled in fiat. Anyone would say, this is amazing. It's doubled in 10 years. But in Bitcoin terms, it's just gone down. It's just going to just keep going down. And that's just so hard for some people to understand. It's just so hard for some people to admit that they don't know everything, to admit that they've been wrong about Bitcoin or have been unwilling to learn about Bitcoin. I mean, you know this, Paula, because you're a Bitcoiner, but you took the time. You read a book and, you said, okay, let me just do some work. And that's really all it takes. So Bitcoin is equal opportunity, but it's not equal outcome. And that's why I don't feel bad for the latecomers who say, oh, well, you guys just got in early and you guys, oh, wow, you didn't have to do anything. But we did. We have had to do so much, changing what you know and what your beliefs are and admitting where your circle of competence is requires a bit of humility and some critical thinking.
That's absolutely right. Could you say that owning a home is rent rebranded? What do you mean by that?
So let's say you buy a home and you pay all cash, or you've completely paid it off and, so it's yours. Yet every year you're still paying property taxes, which is really rent to your county. It's like, I believe that if you own something, you should own something, meaning it can never be taken away and you shouldn't have to be paying any more money other than what you want to yourself, just for maintenance or security. And so why are we paying property taxes? Well, here's why. Because all we really, quote unquote, own are the wood, the boards, and the nails. We don't own the land. It still goes all the way back to England and the landlords. You even look at the word mortgage. If you break it down, it's mort, as in mortuary, engage as in engagement. You have an engagement to death, and so this being in the real estate world. But even before I found Bitcoin, I was telling people, this, like, buy if you really want to buy. I get it, but there's nothing wrong with renting. You have a lot of freedom. Your security deposit really is your permission to do whatever you want to the place, because that's their recourse, right? Go ahead and paint it, add new floors, add new countertops. Many landlords, in fact, would love if you are helping to improve the place. When you buy, like, I just paid my property taxes, and that clearly was an amount that is equal to rent, and I have to pay that every single year, even if I've paid off this house entirely. So if you look at the true definition of property, which is, something that you can defend and no one can take from you, I guess real estate really isn't true sovereign property, because it can be taken away from me. And even if I'm complying and I'm being good and I'm doing everything that the government wants me to, that, they could expand the airport. That, I once had a house on the 0-yard line of the airport down by the beach, and I moved because I saw the houses one block over get toppled and the next one. And I was on the 0-yard line. I said, okay, this is coming next. And they will just pay what they call market value. Doesn't mean it's the true market value, and take it. So I know that some of these are extreme cases, and in the Western world or the global North, it's like we don't see these things so much as other sort of disenfranchised or dictatorship regions, or like the global South. But it's important for people to understand and just be honest that we don't really own property. That Bitcoin, I will argue, is the first time that we really can own property, and cryptographically, because cryptography supersedes legality. And again, I'm not saying to be a bad person, but it doesn't matter what the courts or a judge or a government or anyone says. If you cryptographically have the keys and have your Bitcoin, it's up to you. You have your Bitcoin. And if they want to kill you because of that, well, now they clearly are not going to get your Bitcoin. Anyway, so that's why I call owning real estate it's just renting rebranded.
What's that explanation? You said you still own some real estate. Why do you keep some? Is it for diversification?
No, honestly, there's no reason, tax or any other reason. It's because the half a dozen places that I still, or dozen places I still have, are because I'm partnered with other business partners who I haven't been able to orange pill. Even and by the way, every year I show them, do you see what would have happened had we put that into Bitcoin where it is now? Do you see what would have happened? So, I'm getting closer on some of them, but some I've just resigned myself to the fact that I'm just going to have to hang on. But everything that was just 100% mine got rid of. Yeah. except for my principal residence.
Good for you, because you said earlier, everything when priced in Bitcoin is falling.
Everything. I mean, I'm probably going to look back at this podcast and say, wow, I was talking to Paula when I could have sold this house for 21 Bitcoin. And I'm going to be like, why did I not run out and sell it immediately? Right. Well, like what, because I could, by the way, I could equally rent this same house and enjoy life just as I do. There's nothing that because I own it, I'm enjoying any more than if I was just renting. I could still paint the walls. I could still change a sink. It doesn't matter. People just think they can't because like, oh, I'm throwing money away. It's like, well, really? Try paying property taxes and maintenance and everything.
One reason I like to own, and maybe it's a reason to downsize, but I like to not be told that I have to move. And that can happen if you're renting.
That's a good point. That's a fair and good point. Yeah. True.
But good, other than that,
I actually had not thought of that. I like hearing that.
So the subtitle of your book is The Big Idea Behind Bitcoin, What You Don't Know and Why You Need It. Don't people know?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded subtitle because I was trying to figure out how to encompass just what Bitcoin is and how special it is. So part of that title is talking about mining and energy and the environment. And since, again, I was speaking to my Hollywood people, they don't understand how we capture energy, how we use energy, and they don't understand how Bitcoin mining actually favors the environment and favors energy. And so I partly was speaking to that, and I partly was just speaking to the people that don't realize how much they're being inflated upon. A lot of people say they know what inflation is, and they think it's just, the prices of goods and services going up. But it's not, right? We know that that's just a symptom. That's the result of inflation. And so I try to spend a great deal of time really explaining what's happening with inflation. And, I use this pizza example, which I think several other Bitcoiners are now borrowing, which is great. I'm glad it's getting out there. But when I tell people about that this is what inflation is, it sort of opens their eyes and says, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that way. And so the example I use is that think of the economy as this pizza, and we live in a pizza economy. And let's say you, Paula, let's say I build swimming pools, and you say, Paula, say, hey, I want to hire you to build a swimming pool. And I say, great, that's going to cost you, Paula, one slice of pizza. Okay. And so if our pizza economy is 10 slices, that's 1/10 of the economy. You own 1/10 of the economy. Okay. So the government comes in and they inflate. Well, they aren't adding any pizza because there's no goods or services. They haven't added any calories to the economy, but they just reslice it. And so now they've resliced it. So this same pizza, same amount of cheese and pepperoni and pineapple, now has 20 slices. Now, I don't want to have to charge you more, Paula. I just want that one slice that you were going to pay me because I know that one slice will feed my family, my workers. But I now have to charge you 2 slices because 2 slices are the exact same calories of what one slice was when we made the deal to build your swimming pool. And that's inflation. There's no new goods or services, and our numbers just keep going up. And so we chase, and we have this game, and I need to make more money. Now I got to pay my people more money. And so I feel like that's part of the big idea, that and energy, and that we can just live in a better world the more and more we adopt Bitcoin, just like the internet. I mean, look, the internet has made our world fabulous, and it's been a little bit more equal and have equal access. And I think Bitcoin will do that as people, I mean, look, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, if back in whenever we were trying to explain the internet to people and we were having all these podcasts and Twitter spaces and we were talking about DNS and TCP and IP and packets, and it's like, we're so nerdy. What are you guys talking about? Like, no one talks about any of that now, right? And I hope in 15, 20 years, no one is having these conversations. Just, yeah, well, of course it's Bitcoin. Like, how stupid. You guys were using these paper dollars before. Like, what? You guys, I can't believe that's, so I feel like that's going to be, it's like, what? You had a typewriter with carbon paper and liquid paper. That's how you wrote, to not type out things first and then backspace and bold and italics. that seems so foreign. So I feel like Bitcoin's going to be the same. It just, will take some time.
People are resistant to change. The two reasons that I see people considering Bitcoin is inflation, because everybody's feeling that, and around the world, places more than others. And of course, number go up.
Yes.
That brings people in.
For sure. And I think that's important. Number go up is very important.
How much do you focus on price?
Well, I focus on price a lot because I believe that the market price does capture and represent the adoption of Bitcoin. And even though on the short term, we're going to have cycles and things will go up and down because, let's be honest, there is some influence, or there's traders, there's geopolitical events. But in general, the more people that use Bitcoin, the more people that save in Bitcoin, the scarcer it becomes, the more that people take it into custody. It was designed to, and the more that price will just continue to go up. And that's why I like looking at the 200-week moving average. And I'm not a chartalist, but if you look at Bitcoin's price just on weekly averages over the last 200 weeks, which is a 4-year period, right? 52 weeks per year. The line just goes straight up. There's not a single dip. In fact, there isn't a single week that has gone down if you're looking at 200 weekly averages. Meaning, so it's like if someone buys this week and then they buy the next week, as long as you're looking at the average of the prior 200 weeks, you're just going up. So that, to me, is important. And I know there's some hardcore Bitcoiners that think about the technology of Bitcoin and what it can do, of course, for people that just need it to, flee borders, cross borders, who need it because they're completely unbanked or debanked. I get that. I very much get that. And I think that's super important. But as the price goes up, we honor those people because those people are able to save and move their value without it dissipating by the time they get to where they need to be and can access their Bitcoin.
That's a good point. Price goes up because our governments keep printing money. It's just a kind of the increased M2, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's true, because we are just denominating it in our own currency. And so we'll always go up because it's the currency that's going down. Correct. 100%.
I think it'll become a medium of exchange one day.
I don't think it'll be a global medium of exchange. No, I think certain sort of circular economies will use it in certain regions for sure. But for the same reason, I don't think real estate, is a medium of exchange, even though there's a lot of friction there. Gold is really not a medium of exchange, yet gold is probably the closest to Bitcoin, just the analog version. I do think, however, it will be a medium of trade. This sounds like semantics, but it'll be a medium of trade globally at the sovereign nation, potentially at a corporate level, but what is it? Is it Gresham's law, I think, that talks about how we will spend the least hard money and we will save in the hardest money. So, I know a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners, including myself. I would rather just spend my fiat dollars and save in Bitcoin. And also, let's be honest, the dollar network is incredible and it works well. Everyone accepts it. Everyone in the world would love to have the dollar. Most places like we are already at the top in inflating the least amount so we can jump straight to Bitcoin. But many people are 50 steps below, whether they're, in Turkey or Lebanon or Argentina, so they just want to keep jumping up. And for many of them, it's the dollar or some kind of stable coin before they can even get to Bitcoin. So yeah, I don't know, maybe hundreds of years from now, it's hard for me to look out that far, but I think it's going to be a store of value, and I think it will be a reserve asset, right? Like I can see the BRICS nations, I can see people wanting to trade in it and get off the petrodollar for sure. But just as if we trade in oil, I wouldn't call oil a medium of exchange, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm too pessimistic in that sense.
Well, it's interesting, and I think you bring up some really good points. I think the US dollar is really strong, and the people behind it are really strong, and they're going to fight. I had Jeff Booth on, and his position is that order for Bitcoin to survive, it has to become a medium of exchange. It will only become a medium of exchange on the second and third layers. It cannot be on the base layer because that's going to get too expensive. I cannot think even 5 years out. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but maybe it will.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice to have that. And I think Lightning is amazing. I've used it as a medium of exchange numerous times, and I try to use it as a medium of exchange, but it becomes a store of value because I will have someone download a wallet. I'll say, great, I'm going to pay you the $20 I owe you. Or like the other night I went to dinner with a friend, and it was an expensive dinner. So, it's like I owed him a couple $100. I decided to get creative, and I gave him 12 words. And that way he was, which I think is, by the way, a great orange pilling experience, because he's like, what the heck is this? I tell him, this is your Bitcoin. He downloads a wallet, he punches in, it's like, what? And it's in Bitcoin. So in a sense, that was a medium of exchange, but now he's going to use that as a store of value because it's a Bitcoin only wallet. He can't even move it to USD. So he's like, well, how do I convert this back to money? I said, oh, no, it is money, and don't convert it. Just hang on to it. You watch. So I don't know.
That is a wonderful way to orange pill. Wonderful. I've always tried to figure out how to do that, but you can actually send them the 12 words. You've already set it up rather than
I love doing this at like, what do you call those? Like Secret Santa parties and stuff, where it's like everyone bring a $25 gift. In fact, there'll be some more coming up here soon. I just put 12 words and I'll put it like under a frame, like a photo or whatever. And they think they have this photo, and I'll be opening it up and they're like, what is this? But it gets them thinking, it's a little puzzle.
A great way. I give it for Christmas, and I'm wasn't sure how to do the wallet thing, because then I'd have to hold it for them. But that's a great way. Set it up.
And the good thing is, since you've created the words, you have them. And so you could always check in with them 6 months later and see if it's still there. And you could be like, hey, because I gave you the words, I do have the words. You should move them to your own words. But so it ends up, the lesson sort of continues.
I made an interesting video on X, and was out. We're all going to sell our Bitcoin at some point.
Yes.
So, do you believe that?
So Bitcoiners all say, never sell your Bitcoin. We're never going to sell our Bitcoin. It's the most pristine money. It's pristine collateral. Why would you ever give up the best asset for anything less? And I 100% agree. But Bitcoiners will tell you, and as we just talked about with medium exchange, that they will spend their Bitcoin. Well, I think it's a little bit of semantics, and it's an important semantic, because when we say we won't sell our Bitcoin, what we mostly mean is we're not going to sell it and trade back into a dollar and be denominated into a dollar, right? Because that's what we do with real estate or artwork or precious metals, whatever. But we will spend, meaning the minute we see something we really need, whether it's a medical expense, house, college education, whatever, we will spend into that, because after all, that is why we're saving. Many people that have just come into Bitcoin aren't going to want to do that anytime soon, but ask them and they'll all say, yeah, I'm saving up for a house. I want this ranch. I want land. I want whatever. It's like, okay, so technically you're going to spend, which is technically means you're going to sell. It's just going to be a quick sell to buy. And the reason that I did that video, because the key part of that is that we will all sell Bitcoin at the price we deserve. Meaning that those who have done the work, those who have held and saved, those people will be able to carry their spending ability, their excess past contribution to society forward in time, and it will immensely benefit them. And those that have just been trading, those who have not done the work, they'll sell out too early. We have a new bull run coming up, and I promise you, and a lot of it's going to be optics. We're going to hit 100K, and so many people are going to be out. And that can benefit them in the short term, and they're going to be like, this is incredible, I just doubled my money. But boy, are they going to have regret when we get up to 400,000. So
we're going to 400 in this cycle?
I don't know where we'll be. I do believe that before we have any type of Bitcoin bear, that we will probably be somewhere in the 200 to 400 range. Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
It's interesting to just think about it.
It's so wide, you can't really call that a forecast. It's like, well, that could be anything, but yeah.
So how has Bitcoin changed you?
It's made me more philanthropic. I'm more generous than I was with my fiat dollars, because I knew everything was getting more expensive in fiat, and I was constantly worried when I would be making more fiat if I wasn't doing something that was bringing in immediate money. And so I would tend to get more stingy. And oddly, or not oddly, now that I price everything in Bitcoin, because I really do, every time I make a substantial purchase or looking at my net worth, I really look at it in terms of Bitcoin. So when I look at it in terms of Bitcoin and I break it out, and I break it out for how long I'm going to live and whatnot, it's like, I can live on a Bitcoin standard. So because of that, I'm not one of these people that feels I need to necessarily die with a pile of money. It's like, I want to give my heirs some, and I want certain people to be taken care of, but I also want people to do the work. I don't want people to just end up with a ton of money and they decide not to be, productive in society. So it's helped me be more philanthropic, and I get to think about whose lives can I improve? How can I help this person get started with this business? What are other things that I can invest in? Because it will require less and less Bitcoin as I do that, instead of more and more dollars.
Wonderful. What a wonderful change.
Yeah.
Are you going to make a Bitcoin movie?
I hope so. I've got several in development. I'm writing a script. I'm collaborating with a few other people. It's the challenge is, as I think, making a movie that really isn't a Bitcoin movie, but is a Bitcoin movie, so that we can grab the people who aren't Bitcoiners, because the people that are Bitcoiners don't really need it. It's the people who aren't. And, when you look at movies like The Matrix or The Big Short or even The Social Network and whatnot, a lot of movies have come close to being sort of a Bitcoin movie. We can just insert it a little more. And I think there's a lot of things in the works. I'm seeing lots of Bitcoin novels now come out, which is really, really cool. And perhaps it will just be the adaptation of one of those novels that will get there. But personally, I would love to do something like The Social Network that talks about the cryptographers and people that built Bitcoin. I think there's some really good drama in that, sort of like a historical piece.
And even some of the benefits of mining, right? That people don't realize that it actually does good, and it heats homes, and it lights up cities for people. But that's interesting, but it's just another benefit that people have it all wrong. They think it's wasteful, but it really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a big misconception with mining, that it emits, zero CO2. Like, there are no emissions whatsoever. The only emission is heat, which of course can in itself become a benefit, as you just pointed out. Yeah, so I think it's fantastic what Bitcoin mining can do for the environment.
Just for our last question, besides Bitcoin, what are you passionate about?
Boy, that's a tough question for a Bitcoiner, because
Right.
everything is about Bitcoin these days.
Health.
I see. Yes, for sure. Yes, my health. I've always been very health conscious. I work out a lot. I skateboard a lot. I like to get outside. I'm very close to the beach. So, I run down on the beach and stuff like that. But nowadays, whenever I'm doing that, I'm either listening to a podcast or I'm making a new video, because it's just been the latest thing. I like now skating down by the beach and making a video, and it's just so random, but people seem to like it. So it forces me to really think, because it takes concentration. I'm not just sitting in front of a computer talking. I'm moving about and I'm dodging people and cars. So it's like, wow, do I really understand what I'm saying? It makes me really, really synthesize my thoughts. I don't know. It might be dangerous, but that's fun. But no, I'm just, what it is? It's, when you say besides Bitcoin, what am I passionate about? It's like, it really is Bitcoin, but I'm passionate about educating people about Bitcoin. I'm passionate about getting the word out there. I want to speak. I want to shout. I want to talk. Like, I crave the meetups, the conventions, but also talking to the people who aren't the Bitcoiners, who don't know about those things. Any chance I can get to talk about Bitcoin with anybody is really what excites me these days. It's like I almost start to get nervous if my Hollywood agent calls me, because there's some TV show that wants to meet with me or something. It's just like, oh my gosh, like and it's like all I have to do is say no. And it's great that I could say no, but it's just like, but I still get nervous because, you want to be needed. You want to be asked. And so it's like, okay, well, I'll still take the meeting. I want to know that I get the offer, and then I can then still turn it down. And then the same with real estate. Like, and you know this too. It's like, there's something so attractive. Like I'm walking around the neighborhood and, oh, a new sign goes up and, oh, what are they doing? Oh, look at that design. And it's like, you want to go to the open house. But then I also just start to like get a little nervous. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to like get into this 6-month project now? It's like, so, there's that struggle.
Relate to that so much, because doing something like that takes away from your Bitcoin time. And I'm just going to go back to what you said earlier. You said we're born bad. I never thought we were born bad. Maybe we're born equally, like yin yang, good and bad. It's life and fiat money kind of forces us to go to the bad side. But what I'm hearing you say is Bitcoin's making you want to give. Bitcoin's making you want to share it with everybody. So I see Bitcoin as such a big change for humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think, sometimes the critics are like, oh, well, all of these Bitcoiners, they're just going to be sitting on these hordes of cash and have all this money. And it's like, I don't think so. I think they're going to become philanthropic. I think they're going to, they just haven't been in that position. But your wealth just is continuing to go up and up and up and up in fiat terms just by having the Bitcoin you have. Aren't you going to want to help? Aren't you going to want to give? And now you can do it even in a micropayment way. Like I can't with fiat give 50 cents to some artist in Argentina, but I can do that with a Zap, and it costs 1/30 of a penny. So it's like all day long, boom, 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 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents. Like I would rather do that than just give $10 to the homeless person on the street. I'd rather like these other people in these other countries that it means everything to them. And you could do that with Bitcoin. That's fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today, Terence.
Thank you, Paula. It's awesome meeting you, and it's great to see you building this podcast. I've seen who some of your guests are already. I'm like, wow, she's really killing it. So it's awesome.
Thank you. Just got to improve my technical skills. Tell us where people can find you.
Oh, people can just find me on X at Proof of Money. I'm really there 27 hours a day. So
Thanks so much.